Oncore Lesson 26. We're talking about dividing, which is something that's not new to us. But one of the things that I find when students get to 6th grade is that they struggle knowing what to do with remainders and where to put the decimals. So again, if this is something that's old news to you, this should go pretty quickly. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. But if it's something that we need a little practice on, hopefully this will clear some things up. First thing that they ask you to do, and you're going to see this a lot in the school year, is that they're going to ask you to estimate. You might say, well, why do I need to estimate if I have the answer? And the simple fact is you don't. You don't have to estimate. Estimation can be very, very useful if you're looking at large numbers and you want to get close to an answer. If I want to say, oh, there's about 32 thirtieths in 960 or something like that. I know I'm close. I know I'm somewhere in the ballpark because it's going to be a little higher than 30, but I'm estimating. So what they want you to do is they want you to estimate and then work with the remainder. And they write it as remainder. So for example, if this is 399 divided by 42, and they're going to find that you get 9, remainder 21. And you see this little remainder. Don't. They ask you to do that in 6th grade, and I don't make the 6th grade curriculum, but quite honestly, I think you're beyond that. Because we don't look at remainders anymore and we say, well, I have this number that I don't know what to do with. I got close and then I quit. Instead, what I want you to do is I want you to look at that remainder, and you can either express it as a decimal or you can express it as a fraction, because that's where we are in mathematics right now. So if I had 42 divided into 399 and I find that I have 9, remainder 21, instead I take this 21 and I put it over 42, and that's telling me that 21 is still being divided by 42. 21 and 42, that can be simplified. Well, I know they're both divisible by 7. And I get 3/6. Oh, they're both divisible by 3. And I get 1/2. So the answer between 399 and 42 is actually 9½ Get yourself an answer. Don't just quit halfway through. So again, when they ask you for a remainder, that's valid. They're going to ask you for that, but I'd rather see you take it all the way. So I don't see the point in using remainders when we're beyond that. So if I have 960 divided by 17, something that's important to remind you of, that I remind you of in class all the time, you're required to show your work. If you don't show your work, I don't know how you got the answer. We have lots of tools at our disposal. We have calculators, we have photo math, we have the textbook, we have all these fun things, we have these videos. But if you don't show the work, you're not doing yourself any credit. You make a mistake, you either A, quit and don't know any better, or B, have to go back and redo the entire problem. If you show the work, all you have to do is look and say, oh, yep, there's where I found my mistake, okay? So if I'm at 17 divided into 965, first thing I look at, can 17 divide into 9? The answer is no, it cannot. Can 17 divide into 96? Well, if I'm estimating, I know that, well, 965 is close to 1,000, 17 is close to 20, so I'm going to try 5, because I know 20 goes into 1,000 5 times. 17 times 5, and I'm just showing you this for the video here. 5 times 7 is 35, carry the 3, 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 85. Is 85 close to 96? Yes, it is. Can I fit another 17? No, I can't. So using estimation, I was quickly able to find, boom, 5 times. 17 goes in 5 times in a 96, and I have my answer here, 85. That leaves me with 11 left over. Now, I don't expect anybody to memorize their multiples of 17, and if you do, that's fantastic. If you don't, you can use estimation to get you close. It gives you a starting point. If I found out I was too low, well then I just try one higher. Let's try 6. If I found I was too high, try one lower. Just a tool to help you along your way. All right, so now I bring down my 5. I need to know how many times 17 goes into 115. Well, I know that I'm pretty close here with 5, so I'm going to go ahead and try 6. And I have 17 times 6, and I get 102. All right, well, I can't fit another 15 in there, so that's my answer. I have 6, and I get 102. And when I subtract them, I'm left with 13. 13 left over. Well, I have two choices here. I can either add a decimal and keep going, instead I'm going to take my 13 and I'm going to use that still divided by 17, because every fraction is a division problem. So I'm telling you that I have 56 and then I have this 13 left over that's still being divided by 17. So my answer then would be 56 and 13/17. I don't see where that's any harder than saying 56 remainder 13. But remainder 13 just stops my problem. So I want you to write it as a fraction or a decimal. Because when I look at 13/17, I know that they're both prime numbers and I can't simplify that. If I could simplify it, I must simplify it and I'd make my life easier. So let's come down here and let's estimate and find the quotient. So 836 divided by 32, I'm going to rewrite that. 32 divided by 836. All right, so 32 into 836. Well, 32 is close to 30. 800 is less than 90, so I could try 3. Because 30 times 3 would give me 900. So I'll try 3, and I'm left with 96, and that's too high. 32 times 3 is 96. Too high, so I'm going to try 2. I get 64, and I'm left with 19. Well, that makes sense. Bring down my 6. I say that makes sense because I want 19 to be less than 32. You'd be surprised how often people do this, and then they don't double check that this number is less than what I'm dividing by my divisor, and they've made their mistake right there. If you write out the work, you can easily see that. All right, so if I know that 32, and how many times does it go into 196? Well, I haven't memorized my multiples of 32, but I do know that 30 goes into 180, and that's pretty close, right? 3 goes into 18 6 times, so let's try that. 6 times 2 is 12, and 6 times 3 is 18, plus 1 is 19. Oh, I'm so close, 192. 32 times 6, 192. And when I subtract 192 from 196, I'm left with 4. Okay, so now I have 26 and 4 30-seconds. You can see I was able to show all of my work here in a very relatively small space, but I can still see everything that I did. 26 and 4 30-seconds. Well, 4 and 2 at the end of 30 seconds are both even numbers, so they're divisible by 2. I can get 2/16. If I divide 4 by 2, I get 2. 32 by 2, I get 16. Some of you instantly saw 4 30-seconds and were able to realize they're both divisible by 4. But I'm going to take the long way and divide by 2 again because they're both even numbers. And I get 1/8, which means I have 26 and 1/8. So 836, divided by 32 is 26 and 1/8. So show you your work, go back through, but when you have a remainder, don't quit. You can write it as a decimal and keep it going, but it's probably quicker and easier to write it out as a fraction. So even though they may tell you that they want to see it as a remainder, this R whatever I'm left over with, don't buy into that. Write it as a fraction, simplify it, actually get your answer. And then the other part that we looked at today, when you're talking about estimation, you might say, well, why do I have to do that? You don't have to do that unless they specifically ask you in the instructions to estimate. Then you're going to get credit for estimating. If you don't estimate, you won't get credit. But estimation as a tool, for example, 836 divided by 32, I don't know that. But I do know 836 is somewhere around 900, and 32 is somewhere around 30, and I know that 900 is divisible by 30. Drop the zeros, and I can get an answer. That gets me pretty close to what I'm talking about here. So again, using your estimation, and what do you do with your remainders? Let's turn them into fractions and or decimals and simplify it if you can.